Can't say there's nothing because an arising is seen. You can't say there's something because a passing away is seen. Now, if you can imagine that which is between existence and emptiness, that's the Buddha called the middle way. It was another explanation of the middle way. It's called rise and fall, dependent origination, the process, always in flux. He said that's the truth. It's not there's nothing. It's not there's a persisting thing. You, your body and mind, is in continual change. It's not something changing. It's not like a pea going through a process of being processed, where there's a pea in the beginning, an essence, which is there at the end. It's continually changing. What was there in the next moment wasn't here in this moment. A flux of cause and effect, with nothing going from one moment to another. Or like a string of mala beads. You know, these beads which you hang around your neck sometimes and people use to meditate with. It's like a string of beads, but no string going from one bead to the next. Every bead is discrete, individual, not connected to the next one, except because they're adjacent, there's a cause and effect. Every moment of conscious experience is just like a simple mala bead. The next one is completely different. There is something there, but it is not persisting. It's empty in its core. Many years ago, there was a wandering monk in Japan who was wandering for alms. He hadn't got any food for many days. He was very hungry. He went into a restaurant. When he went into this restaurant, he saw straight away that the owner of the restaurant was a Buddhist. They had Buddha statues, they had calligraphy. He realized he'd struck oil. So he went in there to the owner, who happened to be a devout Buddhist lady. And he said, I'm a monk. I'm walking on alms round. If you want to make merit, put something in here. And the woman says, wait, I don't give alms to ordinary monks. And he said, listen, if I teach you the Dhamma, will you give me some food? And she said, if it is inspiring Dhamma, yes. So he recited the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Sadhu, sadhu, she said. What beautiful Dhamma. Sit down. I'm going to get you something. He was so excited because this wasn't an ordinary restaurant. This was a really 5-star restaurant in Japan. His mouth started to water. His stomach juices started to be secreted as he started contemplating the delicious food which was coming. And she came with this big platter, this big silver platter, with a cover over it to keep the inside warm. And he was just licking his lips as he put the platter in front of the monk. And as she took off the cover, his heart sank. It was an empty platter. And the woman said, monk, if form is emptiness and emptiness is form, then eat emptiness. So it's not all empty. Otherwise, with all emptiness, you would have nothing to eat. But eating is just a process, that's all. There's nothing substantial there. Okay? Next question. Dear Venerable, can metta bhavana attain 4th jhana? Yes. And it's interesting this because in the commentaries, and I always ask people, you can look at the commentaries, but they are not the word of the Buddha. They make mistakes. The Buddha never makes mistakes, but monks like me do. I make mistakes. So does Buddhaghosa. That is absolutely true. So in many of those cases he said, well, metta bhavana can get you into 1st jhana, karuna gets you into 2nd, mudita makes you 3rd. That is wrong. We know that by experience. Metta jhana can get you all the way to enlightenment, let alone just 1st jhana. In particular, they have this, he said that some of the meditations like Buddhanusati, reflection on the Buddha, can only get you into upachara samadhi. It says in the Visuddhimagga. My tradition in northeast Thailand has been using buddho, buddho, buddho along with the breath for so many years, and those monks get into fourth jhana, beyond. Those monks get enlightened. We know from experience that doing buddho, which is part of buddhanussati, leads you all the way to enlightenment. Some people have told you this. They say anapanasati is just samatha. It just leads you to calm. That is wrong. It says that maybe in the commentaries, but look what the Buddha said, and the Buddha said anapanasati leads you right into enlightenment. And if you doubt that, that's what the Buddha did under the Bodhi tree, anapanasati. He didn't do sweeping the body. He did meditation on the breath. It led all the way to enlightenment with all the three knowledges. Anapanasati, the Buddha said, fulfills the four satipatthana. So anapanasati is satipatthana practice, according to what the Buddha said. If you do anapanasati, that is practicing satipatthana. And I can quote you, Anapanasati Sutta, Majjhima 118. And you find it in there. Check me out. So what we're actually saying here is that the question again, Metabara and Get 10 Jhana. Yeah, in the earlier book called the Vimuttimagga, which was earlier than the Visuddhimagga, this was a text which was also written in Sri Lanka, which got lost in Sri Lanka but was taken to China, translated into Chinese, and it's been retranslated back again into English. Vimuttimagga, earlier than the Visuddhimagga. And it was obviously, when you read that, Buddhaghosa took that as like crib, and he expanded it. Vimuttimagga is earlier, the same sort of commentary on Dhamma. And in there, I always laugh when I read this. It again says all these meditation subjects, whether it can lead to first jhana or second jhana. And it gets to buddhanussati. It says the teachers say that buddhanussati only leads to upachara samadhi. But then they got another line, which is right afterwards. He says, but actually it leads all the way into all the jhanas. It's as if that some monk had read that at the time and saw it was a mistake. From experience, he said, no, it leads to everything. So in the Vimuttimagga, it says, they do lead to everything. And the reason is because I've mentioned about this process business. When you meditate, it's like getting the ball rolling. It's like rolling a snowball downhill. Once it gets going, it takes a life of its own. And that's mentioned many times by the Buddha. I mentioned it when I said this enlightenment is a natural process. Once you get joy, inspiration, he said the body becomes calm and the mind becomes tranquil. It's called passaddhi, kaya passaddhi and chitta passaddhi. From that, it's an automatic development that the mind is happy. You get this joy and bliss coming up. Nimittas arise. It's natural. You can't stop it. You can only interfere with it, and you get afraid or excited and it all falls apart. But if you leave it alone, you don't do anything, it's a natural process. From that happiness, you get into jhanas. From the jhanas, you get into insight, seeing things as they truly are. That's straight from the text. Samadhi pachaya yata bhutayana dasana. From samadhi, you see things as they truly are. From that, you get enlightenment. It's a natural process. So the point is how you start that process with metta, with anapanasati, with sweeping the body, with watching the feelings in the body, with noting, with counting, with doing buddhanussati, dhammanussati, sanghanussati, with kasina meditations. Doesn't matter how you start. Once you get joy and happiness coming up, the process just takes over. Doesn't matter where you start. You get happiness, the body disappears, the senses disappear, the mind manifests nimitta as you go into that nimitta, as you go through the jhanas. It's the same process for everybody. Where you start doesn't matter. That's why, metta bhavana leads all the way to enlightenment. Because metta is letting go. Liba, love, liberation, freedom. Same process. Any questions on that? Yeah, go on. They play down. You can't play down on those things because that's what the Buddha said. If you want to check this out, look in the suttas for yourselves. Don't believe the Vipassana masters, don't believe me. Isn't that what the Buddha said? Kalama Sutta, check it out for yourself. Look in, for example, the Latukikopama Sutta, simile of the quail. It's about 68, I think, somewhere around there, or 66, around there. There it says that you should not be afraid of the jhanas, that you should develop those jhanas, you should practice those jhanas, you should make much of those jhanas. In Pali, it's of the jhanas, Natbayitabang, Asewitabang, Bahulikātabang, Bhavetabang. That's the word of the Buddha. The Buddha said, you should not fear those jhanas, you should make much of them, follow them, develop them. So I follow the Buddha's advice. Even if Ajahn Chah said opposite, which he didn't, if the Vipassana masters say this or say that, I will always follow the Buddha. If Ajahn Brahm says something, don't follow me, follow the Buddha. The Buddha said, practice the eightfold path. What is the eighth factor of the eightfold path? 4 jhanas. Samma Samadhi is always, every time, without exception, defined as the 4 jhanas. Never anything else. That is Samma Samadhi. Right concentration is jhanas. You can't avoid that. And there's no such thing as Vipassana jhanas and Samatha jhanas. There's only jhanas. That was coming from the commentaries a long time later. For the Buddha, there's only jhanas, nothing else. Okay. Some schools of thought believe that we can go straight to enlightenment by bypassing the jhanas. Is this true? If you look at Sutta number 64 in the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the Malunkyaputta Sutta. Malunkyaputta, 64 of the Majjhima Nikaya. It says that you cannot get to the heartwood of a tree except by going through the bark and the sapwood. Try and think out of a way to get to the heartwood of a tree. Can you actually figure out a way other than going by the bark and the sapwood? You have to go through the bark and the sapwood. He said, you have to do that. You can't get to the heartwood without doing that. Nor can you get to the abandoning of the 5 lower fetters except by going through jhana. It's the most clear statement in the Majjhima. You cannot get to anagami, let alone full enlightenment, except by going through the jhanas. Said by the Buddha in the Mahamalunkyaputta Sutta. And in the Anguttara Nikaya it says again and again, you cannot fulfill wisdom, the Panyakanda, the body of wisdom, without fulfilling samadhi. You have to fulfill samadhi first of all. And I will tell you why in 2 nights' time. 2 days' time, not tonight, tomorrow night. After I talk about jhanas, to tell you what they actually are, the talk afterwards is life is not what it seems. It seems things as they truly are. It's only after the jhana we actually get the insights, the data, to actually understand what's going on. We simply don't see enough to really get enlightened. Okay, so you do actually need to get into jhanas. And that's actually the forest tradition of Thailand teaches that. Do Ajahn, after you have given your instructions on the meditation, can somebody switch off the lights on the stage? I don't wish to miss my nimitta, even if it's a dim one. Okay, your nimitta, it will not depend upon whether you're in the great sunlight or within the darkness, because your nimitta will be brighter than 1,000 suns. And you will have no doubt that that's a real nimitta, because when it comes, it'll be still, it'll be brilliant, and it will have lots of happiness. Check out the happiness and the power. And if it hasn't got that happiness and the power, it's not a strong one. So it doesn't matter turning on the lights and off the lights. Just leave that alone. See what's going on inside, rather than worrying what's going on outside. Dear Ajahn Brahm, when I'm in concentration, why there's suddenly a falling sensation and I lose the concentration and have to start again. That falling sensation is your mindfulness is not strong enough. You've lost the plot. That's why when you're really mindful, because mindfulness and this concentration, you're empowering mindfulness to become subtle. What happens is actually, the reason why this is because whoever wrote that, they're going too fast into stillness. Slow down. When you're training, when you actually say learning chemistry, or like mathematics, you do simple sums first of all. When you're good at that, then you may be able to do subtraction. When you're good at that, then you may be able to do sort of multiple subtractions. Then you may be able to do algebra. Then you may be able to do differentiation. Then you may be able to do all this other stuff. But you've got to do it level by level. If you go too far ahead of yourself, you just can't handle these things. So you've got to learn how to subtly hold things first of all. To be able to hold the present moment first of all, just to be here now. When you can do that, then you may be able to really understand how to keep in silence without disturbing it. When you train on these coarse objects, then you may be able to hold the breath, just to keep it there without it changing or moving. That leaves a lot of subtlety, like a person learning how to paint or learning how to play a piano. You have to do the coarse pieces first of all before you do the fine pieces. You can't start with Chopin. You've got to start with Greensleeves or whatever else you should start with. And then as you get dexterity, as your hands become subtle on the piano, as your mind becomes subtle, then you can take up these refined objects like the beautiful breath. That takes a lot of skill just to hold the beautiful breath. When nimitta comes, that takes a lot of skill. You've got to be so wise and so mindful to be able to be mindful without interfering with things at all. Now that's a wise mindfulness, which is very profound. And you know you've done that when nimittas stay. And then the next thing which happens when you get into a jhana, you have to be able to be mindful without doing anything at all. Absolutely still mindfulness. Which is why when people aren't skilled at that degree of mindfulness, they have what's called ping-pong jhanas. You go in, you come straight out again. Boing, like a spring. You never stay in. To be able to stay in, you've got to have that subtlety of mind. A skill which you learn stage by stage. So this way of meditation, it's like a course at school or university. A graduated course where you learn the skill in mindfulness and letting go. And that's why if you go too fast, you get falling, boings, things fall apart. You've gone a bit too fast. Next question. Why should we not eat after midday? The answer is why not? Why do we have to abstain from using high and luxurious seats? Thanks. Especially that I have a higher seat than you do. And the reason is because when you start meditation, you nod. Now do you understand why you're not allowed to have high seats when you meditate? You might fall off. Two or three times a year when I was a young monk in Thailand, we used to have these all-night festivals in the villages. The all-night festivals, you do the chanting, maybe do a little bit of meditation, but mostly it was monks giving sermons all night. You get famous monks from different monasteries and have all-night sermons. Some of them were really great and very interesting, but mostly they were boring. It's okay to listen to a sermon for an hour, but after a while, people get really dull and bored. So for entertainment, the monks and actually the lay people were into this as well. We'd always look at the end of the line to the young novices. Because as monks, even as novices, they build these like benches, maybe 2 feet high, where all the monks and the novices would sit, and all the lay people would be down there. But because they were very narrow, you'd be sitting quite close to the edge. And the entertainment was it.